Most agencies in 2025 do not know how to price their AI services, don't know whether to jump onto a fixed project, a retainer, do a fixed project and a retainer, or then go down the monthly route or go down the charging hourly, as well as working on commission-based roles in systems such as lead generation. What I wanted to do was run through a variation of pricing models that might be relevant to your AI agency, depending on how far along the line you are. If you don't know who I am, my name's Thomas. I run an AI agency called Ampl AI, and I'm going to clear about $50,000 this month. Pricing is something that I battled with and very recently started to change my mindset on how to price your AI services and how you can change your mindset in order to work with bigger companies, give yourself a better perceived value and come across as an authority as opposed to someone who's just getting started in the space. So what I've done is put together a pricing AI automation in 2025 checklist to make sure you can see what the options are and what might be best for you. It's worth noting right out the gate that your pricing sets authority as well as trust. If you are going out there and charging a couple $1,000s for a massive build, the client is going to start having doubts and they're not going to believe you can do what you say you can do, because if you're an expert, you are going to charge expert prices. This also means agencies start to undercut themselves before they've even got out the gates because they're not charging enough and they end up getting bogged down in work. Scope creep starts to come in and you end up working 1,000 hours for not 1,000 hours worth of work. So jumping in, agencies struggle with pricing. There are a few things that happen when you do not price right. The first one being is it's harder to close deals. Now this might sound ridiculous because you want to try and price yourself at a competitive rate, so you're going to win the work over someone else who might be competing for the same offer. Here it is very much a mindset shift, where if you're looking to get a set of work done and someone come in and says that's going to be $5,000, or someone come in and says $1,000, instantly, whether you like it or not, the client is perceiving the value of what you've charged as the quality of the service you're going to offer. This then means as you're undercutting to try and get the job, you're also undercutting your value, which is giving the client the perception that you may not be the expert they're looking for. This then brings yourself onto missed revenue opportunities. This simply means you are not charging enough for the services that you are offering. If you're just getting out the gates with your AI agency, this is quite hard to do because you need to get the first few jobs in order to see it's being successful and obviously pay the bills, keep the lights on and put food on the table. Another area where you might start to struggle is with inconsistent client expectations. Now what I mean by that is clients are not going to have a true expectation of what they're trying to achieve, or they might start to try and take advantage of the fact that you're a smaller agency. You're not going to bite back when they ask for a little bit more work. The scope starts to creep a little bit and you're going to end up doing a whole bunch of work which wasn't originally planned in the scope. This happens. This has happened to me several times when first getting set out. If you do not scope out correctly and you haven't got things signed in T's and C's and contracts, then there's always room for them to push more work onto you. And because you're essentially trying to get your agency off the ground, you're going to agree to it and start working yourself into the ground. The final element when it comes to where agencies struggle with their price points and what it does is create a perception of risk towards the client. As I said earlier, if you go in and charge $5,000, this comes back to what I mentioned earlier, where if you go in charging $1,000 and someone else has quoted $5,000, are they expensive or are you too cheap? If you're roaming on the side of cheap, then it's not going to make your agency look good. The client's going to think there's some risk and you're not going to be able to deliver. So now that we've got the risks of where pricing can be a massive problem for agencies, let's run through the types of models that you can do when it comes to pricing. First up, we've got fixed project pricing. This is quite a simple one. You do a build, you charge X amount, you hand it over at the end with some deliverables, and that's good to go. This one is definitely the one I would recommend getting started with, doing one-off builds, getting them completed, handing them over with a bit of documentation, and it's a nice clean break. The beauty of these is you've always got clear deliverables, which means you know exactly what you're going to be delivering to the client. They know what they're paying for, and it minimizes scope creep. It's also a predictable cost because you know that it's not going to end up getting more expensive. If you've got a developer working alongside you as well who you're paying in the background, you're not going to have to then ask them to do a little bit more because you can get a fixed price from them. The problem with having a fixed project is you have scoped for that particular project or that particular automation. Sometimes as clients go on, they will want you to add an additional thing here or maybe another module there. Can you connect to this tool here? That then becomes quite a hard area to navigate as you're trying to work out what it is that you've actually agreed to, what they were asking for, and now you've got to try and bundle that all together unless you turn around and say no. Then you've got the retainer pricing. This is the sweet spot that everyone tries to get to because that's when you start to get a monthly recurring revenue. This means every month they might be paying for X amount of hours at X price and you give them a discount if they agree to it long term. What a lot of other people will do as well is they will do a particular job and say to maintain this build, continuously optimize it and update the system, we're going to charge you X% of what the build cost was. Something personally that we do is if we do a build for $2,000, what we're going to do is charge between 25 and 30% of that build cost on a monthly basis so we can continuously update it, add new AI tools that come into it, optimize it as we understand the results that automation is achieving. The nice thing about doing the retainer model is it is an ongoing monthly fee, so you know it's coming, which then makes it stable cash flow because it is predictable. The harder part of doing a retainer is you need to build long-term trust, because someone's only going to want to work with you after you've probably done an initial build or two, they've seen the value that you have to offer, and they would like to bring you in as a long-term partner. The next one is more of a commission pay per result sort of situation. Personally, it's something that I've never done, nor would I really recommend it. I think it gets hard to track. I think people start to take advantage, and if you do exceptionally well, they're going to go somewhere else and maybe try and have someone build it for a one-off fee. However, in that being said, I have heard of people who make enormous amounts of money doing this because they've got a system that they've built in order to track exactly how leads are going, monitoring close rates, the company works really well with them, and overall they make an awful lot of money doing this. The way in which an outcome-based pricing works is they will pay you per lead or sale achieved. So if you've built them some sort of AI lead gen email system, for every booked call you achieve, you might charge them $50 if they've got a closing value of $1,000. The great thing about outcome-based pricing is there is massive potential. If you know an industry particularly well, you know how to generate leads within that industry, this could be a very good route to go down. For example, recruitment, if you've worked in that industry, understand how to find candidates, how to place them, how to resonate with them in emails, there is no reason why you can't go down this route and do exceptionally well. Obviously, the hard thing about outcome-based pricing is there is a huge amount of trust involved. There's also a lot of tracking, and you need to make sure that you are not dedicating too much time to a system that isn't going to give you any results, because then you're just building systems for free. The route that I would go down personally is always a fixed base project pricing to start with, and then get them onto a retainer in the long run. So not only do you get that one-off sum, you can then monitor the system, add additional hours onto it, and you have that recurring revenue. Next, when it comes to building out your AI agency fees, you need to know the actual scope of the project and don't allow any room for scope creep, but also yourself, you fully understand what it is you're building and aren't going to come up against any surprises in the future. The way in which you want to do this is relatively straightforward. You need to map out the business process, understand exactly what their processes look like, make sure you can work out what you can automate, what you can't automate, and what time you're going to save them, or what sort of revenue you're going to achieve them with the automation you're building. Next, you need to define what those deliverables are going to be. So what is the solution you're going to build? Is it a chatbot? Is it a workflow? Is it a lead gen system? Is it some sort of reporting dashboard that sits on their back end connecting to some Airtable? From that point onwards, you then need to work out the integration complexity. If they're using 2 or 3 different tools, it's not going to be too tricky to integrate those through together. If they're using quite a few tools with custom APIs and different endpoints, it's going to be a little bit more tricky for you to integrate. You might have to have a database hub to pool all that data together in order to then add it to some sort of reporting dashboard. From understanding those deliverables, you can then get the cost, hours, and tools. So what you're able to do is work out how many hours it's going to take. Let's say if you're doing a chatbot build that's going to take you 10 hours at $150, that's $1,500. However, based on the next step, that isn't where you finish. You need to add your profit margin. So if you are going to do $150, per hour is your rate fee, you might want to add another 20% on top of that as a profit margin that you can take. Something that also a lot of people don't understand is charging each client a different price, even if the tool remains the same. What I mean by this is if you are building a lead gen system for a company doing 30 grand a month, you want to charge them 2 grand a month, for example, for that system. If you're then speaking to a company doing $1 million a month, that same system is worth a lot more money to them, and the value that they are going to get from that project is vastly greater than the first company. This means you need to use your pricing as a value prop for them. It may be the same system, but it's going to do vastly different things. Running through these 3 pricing methods will start to steer you down the right path in order to price your projects correctly. If we were going to run through some actual current pricing methods, if you're looking to build a simple chatbot, you want to do anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 setup fee, depending on the complexities. This is for small to medium-sized businesses, possibly lead gen bots, customer service bots, FAQ, that sort of thing. Then you move along to workflow automations. These again can be priced anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on the complexities. These are more process automations. You're not necessarily building something that company is going to use on a website or on a voice agent. This is going to sit behind the scenes, connecting tools together and automating a suite of tasks. Then you've got enterprise style pricing, which is much larger companies. They've got much greater headcount within the business, so there is an awful lot more processes and automations you can set up, but it also means the value that you offer is greater. Within here, you can charge between 25 and 100K, but realistically, you could go much higher than 100K depending on the size of the company and obviously the complexity of the build. With enterprise style solutions though, you are not just building back-end systems. You'll have reporting dashboards, you'll have tools that talk to each other, AI agents deployed into various areas of the business. This isn't your one-off automation build. These tend to be custom audits with end-to-end systems bespoke for that particular business and are not copy and paste systems. Then as we come down to retainers, that structures a little bit differently. Are you doing just a retainer? Are you doing a build cost plus a retainer? And this is where you need to start working out what's a fair price to charge. But within reason, anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 per month is a nice place to start. And that will often have support and ongoing builds, changes, connecting different tools as that business scales. For example, you might say we're going to charge you $2,000 a month, but we're going to allocate you 20 hours per month for you to use. And if you go over that, we're going to charge you $150 extra per hour. As mentioned previously, what you would want to try and do is get yourself onto a build price and then attach a monthly retainer to that for ongoing support. And you are their go-to AI solutions person who is going to continuously upgrade their business, upgrade the back-end systems, and eventually automate as much of the business as possible. When you've decided on a price point to pitch your service, you then need to try and get the perceived value across the line. The pricing one does that as long as you're backing it up with quality project scopes, you've built out a nice design proposal, your contract looks professional, but there are going to be other things you can do just to give yourself that extra foot. First one being show ROI early. You don't just want to say we're going to save you 10 hours per week. You want to say we're going to save you 10 hours per week, which actually then means you've now got 10 new hours per week in order to do something that's going to help grow the business. They can now allocate that time to a revenue generating task, which might be more lead generation, it might be speaking to clients, it might be going out there and onboarding new clients, but you want to try and frame it in a way where yes, they're saving 10 hours, but you're actually giving them 10 hours worth of revenue generating tasks back. You then want to package up your services smartly. This means you might want to stack relevant automations together in order to make that a better build. Sometimes we work with clients and they want to automate everything under the sun. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do all of those builds at the same time, and actually makes sense to break them down into different projects, different scopes, and overall completely different proposals. This also means it's easier to then go ahead and build everything at the same time, because if you start with one small build and are able to deliver at that at a high level, they're then going to come back to you and want to work on every other project they've got because you've delivered such an outstanding service the first time. You want to highlight the integrations that are going to see the biggest value. You can go in and probably automate 20 different builds, but you want to try and highlight the top 3 that are going to give them the biggest return and make the biggest difference in their business. Then if you're new, it's going to be a little bit harder, but building authority. There are multiple ways to do this, but you want to use with case studies and testimonials. These need to be on your website. You need to have case studies that have shown we did X for this company and achieved X. You also need to have testimonials where someone said we worked with you guys and you did X, Y, and Z, and it was an outstanding service. Starting off within the AI space is going to be hard to achieve these, but once you get them, you need to use them as leverage to onboard new clients. Something else that you can route down is transparent pricing sheets. This is where you're going to break down the pricing for each of the projects based on the hours it's going to be. So you could say project A is going to take us 10 hours at $100, it's $1,000, but project B might only take us 5. This personally we don't do, as we feel like we just do a one-off fee plus a retainer after that in order to maintain it and keep the systems updated over time. Inevitably, what you want to try and do is get rid of any objections they've got before you hand them the price. So this particular build is going to solve problems A, Y, and Z. It's going to take us X amount of weeks and we're going to charge X for it. You've then given them the pricing, how long it's going to take, what the build's going to do, the integrations it's going to connect with, but you've also then given them an ROI where it's time saved plus revenue generated, or whatever that automation might be doing. And then the final thing is something that will come with time, but it's confident in your scope, which is a mindset shift. You need to be confident that what you are delivering is actually going to be valuable to the company, and they're actually going to see a return or benefit from what it is you're building them. Once you start to implement all of this into the business, you start pricing higher, you start understanding the value, you start explaining the value you are offering the business, you will start to close more deals. Pricing higher doesn't always mean you're outpricing everyone else. It's giving you authority. It makes you come across as the expert within the industry and not someone who's just lugging out prices just because they're trying to get food on the table. So hopefully that shows you how to price your AI services within 2025, what you need to be doing, what you might want to avoid, and how you need to come across as an authority by pricing much higher.